It's the one thing we can always count on. Minutes turn to hours, hours to days. But what if I told you that time itself isn't as reliable as we think? What if I told you that across the country, people are losing chunks of their lives? Hours that vanish without a trace. I'm not talking about zoning out or falling asleep. I'm talking about something far more disturbing. Regular people, truck drivers, hikers, security guards, suddenly finding themselves hours into the future with no memory of what happened. Their watches stopped, their phones dead, and no explanation for where those missing hours went. For the past year, I've been collecting these stories. At first, they seemed random, just weird experiences that didn't make sense. But then I started noticing patterns. Most of these incidents happened between 2 and 4 a.m. The victims always report a strange humming sound before losing consciousness. And here's the most disturbing part. These cases cluster around certain locations: government facilities, research stations, areas marked as restricted on no official map. The authorities don't want to talk about it. When people report these experiences, they're met with silence. Or sometimes, something worse happens. Men in unmarked vehicles show up. They confiscate phones, cameras, anything that might have recorded what happened. They tell people to forget what they saw. But how do you forget losing hours of your life? Let me tell you what makes these cases different from your average missing time story. First, it's the electronics. Every single victim reports their devices failing completely. Not just batteries dying. We're talking about total electrical failure. Phones, watches, car systems, everything goes dark. Second, it's the physical effects. People wake up with their vehicles perfectly parked on the shoulder of the road, or find themselves miles from where they started. Their clothes are clean, their belongings untouched. It's like something carefully placed them back into their lives after taking them out of it. But the most chilling pattern? The government response. Within hours of these incidents being reported, someone always shows up. Sometimes they claim to be from the Department of Energy, sometimes the FBI, sometimes they don't identify themselves at all, but their message is always the same. This is a matter of national security. Don't ask questions. I've spent months piecing this together, tracking down witnesses, connecting the dots. What I've found suggests something bigger than just lost time, something the authorities are desperately trying to hide. Tonight, I'm going to share 5 of the most compelling cases I've uncovered. 5 stories that will make you question everything you think you know about time, about reality, and about what our government is really doing in those restricted zones they don't want us to see. Before we get into the emails I've been receiving, I want to share something that started this whole investigation. 2 months ago, I had a secure WhatsApp conversation with Mark, a security guard who worked at one of these facilities in Nevada. What he told me, well, it was the first piece of a puzzle that keeps getting bigger. Here's what he had to say.
So I've been working at this security plant for about 6 years. It was night shift, always quiet, nothing really ever happened until this one night in March. So I was doing my regular patrol around the outer fence, and then about 2:30 in the morning, I remember it was a clear night, you could see everything. The first thing I noticed that my radio died, then my flashlight started flickering. I reached for my phone to call it in, and it was dead. That's when I felt this, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like the air was heavy or something like that. Something just felt off. It was kind of like right before a storm. You know how the air changes sometimes? And there was this sound. It was like this deep humming sound that you could feel it like vibrating through your bones, like a hard driving bass, like at a concert, how you can just like feel it go right through your chest. That's what it kind of reminded me of. But it wasn't a loud bass. It was just like this hum, this deep resonant hum sound. I remember checking my watch, and it was 2:47 a.m. That's the last thing I remember. And The next thing I know is I'm waking up at my post inside the main building. But here's the thing. I never go inside during my patrol, ever. It's against protocol. The clock on the wall said 6:15 a.m. 3.5 hours went by. But that's not even the weird part. The security cameras, they showed me walking my normal patrol route the whole time. In the footage, I'm checking the doors, making the rounds, doing everything by the book, but that's impossible. I wasn't there. When I reported this to my boss, he just got real quiet. Asked me if I'd seen any lights or strange figures. Like he knew something was going on. I don't know. The next day, these guys show up. There was 3 of them. Couldn't really tell like where they're from. They're just dressed in like black suits. They took my uniform, my equipment, and everything I had on me that night. And before they left, one of them says to me, "You're being transferred to the day shift," they said. When people ask why, tell them it's for personal reasons, nothing else. Just like that. After 6 years of working there, I'm working days instead of nights. And here's what gets me though. They knew all the details about the incident. I didn't tell anybody. They asked if I heard a specific pitch of humming, if I felt any like tingling in my left arm. How did they know to ask that? I never told anybody this story before, but after seeing some of your videos, I know I'm not crazy. Something happened to me that night. Something they're trying to cover up.
I have one last interview before we get to the emails, and it comes from someone who worked in maintenance at Yosemite National Park. Here's what he had to say.
So I never believed in any weird stuff. 6 years working these trails, you see all kinds of things, like people dumping trash, abandoned camping gear, even lost hikers. But this was different. It was early October, just after a big storm hit. I was clearing out fallen trees on one of our maintenance roads, about 4 miles from the visitor areas. Nobody goes out there except for maintenance crews. We had reports of several trees down. They were blocking access to one of our storage areas. I'd been cutting up this tree for about an hour when I noticed something weird under the roots where it got pulled up. At first I thought someone just dumped some old equipment, but when I cleared away the dirt, I found this box, about the size of a mini fridge, but built like a tank. It was like heavy duty metal. No markings, nothing. And it had these sensors sticking out of it, like it was something from a research lab. These little red lights were blinking, making this like clicking sound. The strange part was the display panel. It was showing all these numbers that just kept randomly changing. Not like temperature or humidity readings, but these were different. They were like long strings of numbers that didn't make any sense to me. That's when I noticed the cables, thick black ones, running into the ground. I followed them and found 6 more boxes, all identical, spread out in this perfect circle about 50 feet across. I tried to radio back to the station, but there was nothing. It was just static. So I grabbed my phone to take some pictures. Brand new iPhone. Just bought it the Saturday before. Fully charged, and it's completely dead. Even my truck wouldn't start. Just clicked when I turned the key. Then all the boxes started making this sound, not loud, but it made me feel sick, nauseous almost. But it made me feel like, you know how when your ears need to pop? That's what it made me feel like, but worse. So I had to hike back to the station. My supervisor said we'd check it out first thing in the morning. I'm like, we gotta check it out now. But for whatever reason, we had to go back there the next day. When we got there, everything was gone. Boxes, cables, even the fallen tree, all of it. Like nothing was ever there. But the weird thing, the ground where the tree where the tree was, it looked different. Not like it was replanted, but more like it had never fallen in the first place. I started asking around other maintenance guys if they've seen similar things, like weird equipment in places that shouldn't be, unexplained like power outages or strange readings on their equipment. One guy told me he found a similar box last year, but when he reported it, they transferred him to a different park the next week. So 2 days after I find these boxes, my supervisor calls me in his office, said they were restructuring the maintenance teams, wanted me to transfer to a different section. That's when I knew something was wrong. Nobody gets transferred in October right before winter. I quit. I found a construction job in town. But here's what keeps me up at night. My phone's never worked right since then. It keeps picking up these frequencies, like someone's broadcasting something. Sometimes late at night, numbers flash across my screen. The same that I saw in those boxes. So last week I drive up to that spot, and there's a new sign there now. Environmental research area. No unauthorized access. But I talked to some of the research teams that work in the park, and none of them have projects in that area. None of them use the equipment like what I saw. Look, I know how this sounds. I sound like a lunatic, but I've worked these trails for 6 years. I know every clearing, every access road, every spot where we store all of our equipment. But what I found out there, that wasn't normal research gear, and somebody didn't want me finding out. I still work outdoors, but not in parks anymore, and definitely not alone.
Now, I want to share the first story that landed in my inbox. This one hit different because of the details, the way everything lines up with other cases I've found. When I read it, I knew this wasn't just another random experience. This was proof of something bigger. What you're about to hear came from a truck driver on Highway 50 in Nevada. I've checked out his story, verified his route logs, even confirmed the location of the research facility he mentions. What happened to him matches the pattern we're seeing across the country. The time frame, the electronic failures, and most importantly, how fast the government showed up to contain it. Here's his email. Hi Donovan, I've been following your channel, and after seeing your video about government secrets, I need to share what happened to me. This took place 3 months ago on Highway 50 in Nevada, and I still can't make sense of it. I'm a long-haul trucker, been doing this route for 15 years. Nothing unusual ever happened until that night. I was making my usual run from Salt Lake City to Sacramento. It was around 2:30 a.m., clear night, barely any traffic. I was driving past this research facility, one of those places with no signs, just fences and security cameras. That's when my truck started acting weird. First, the radio died. Then my dashboard light started flickering. I figured it was just an electrical issue, but then my phone died too, and it was fully charged. Even my digital watch went black. The air felt different, heavy somehow. There was this humming sound, not like engine noise, more like when you stand near high-voltage power lines, but deeper. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. Next thing I know, I'm waking up. My truck is perfectly parked on the shoulder, engine off. Here's the part that makes no sense. My watch is working again, but it's showing 6:47 a.m. 4 hours gone just like that. My logbook showed I'd been driving normally, but I have zero memory of it. I checked my truck. No damage, no signs of anything unusual. My phone was working again, but something was off. All my photos from the previous day were gone, not deleted. The timestamp showed they should be there, but when I opened them, just blank screens. I called my dispatcher to report the lost time. That's when things got really weird. Within an hour, 2 black SUVs pulled up behind my truck. 3 men in suits got out, showed me badges so fast I couldn't read them, said they were from the Department of Energy. They asked me specific questions about the humming sound, wanted to know if I'd seen any lights, if I'd felt dizzy before losing consciousness. They weren't surprised by anything I told them. It was like they were going through a checklist. Before they left, one of them handed me a card with a phone number, said if I experienced any unusual symptoms, I should call immediately. Then he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mr. Peterson, for your own safety and the safety of your family, we recommend keeping this incident to yourself." Here's the thing, Donovan. I never told them my last name. I tried looking up that research facility later. It's not on any map. Called the Department of Energy. They say they have no record of anyone being sent to talk to me. The phone number they gave me? It's disconnected. I've been doing this route for a decade and a half. I know every mile of that highway. But now, I take the long way around. Something happened in those missing hours. Something they don't want us to know about. I'm sending this to you because people need to know. This isn't just happening to me. If you decide to share my story, please don't use my real name. After those guys showed up, I don't take chances anymore. Now here's another email from someone who had a very strange something happen to them at Olympic National Park. Let me know in the comments what you think of their story. I need to tell someone about what happened to me last year on the Hoh River Trail. I'm an experienced hiker. Been doing Olympic National Park trails for over a decade. Never had anything like this happen before. I parked at the Hoh Rainforest Visitor Center lot around 7 a.m. Standard day hike, nothing special. About 3 miles in, just past 5 Mile Island, I noticed something different. That's when I saw this clearing I'd never seen before. And I hike this trail at least twice a month. There was this metal structure in the clearing. Looked like a shipping container, but different. No markings, no rust. Just this perfect black metal box sitting there. Before I could get closer, my phone died. Even my old reliable analog watch stopped. The air felt strange, heavy, and there was this sound. Not quite a hum, but something that made my teeth hurt. Next thing I know, I'm waking up on the ground. My pack's next to me, perfectly arranged like someone had laid it out. But I'm nowhere near that clearing. I'm at Ruby Beach. That's 27 miles away. My first thought was, I must have hit my head. Maybe wandered here confused. But nothing hurt. It was almost dark, around 7:45 p.m., nearly 12 hours gone. My phone was working again, so I called an Uber. Had to wait almost an hour for one to come all the way out there. Went to the doctor the next morning, figuring I must have had a concussion or something. They checked me out completely. No bumps, no bruises, no signs of head trauma. Doctor said I was perfectly healthy. I went back the next day with my hiking buddy. That clearing? It's not there. Just solid forest. No box, nothing. My phone is working again, but all my photos from that day are gone. Not deleted. Nothing in the deleted files. I've spent 15 years hiking these trails. I know every bend, every landmark. I know what I saw. But now, I stay away from 5 Mile Island.